Report to the people, the governor's budget. For the next hour and a half, the governor and her cabinet converse with Garden State residents. And now, Governor Christine Todd Whitman.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. Almost 15 months have passed since you elected me governor, and together we've accomplished a lot. As a candidate, I pledged to deliver a smaller, smarter government while cutting taxes, and last year we took giant steps towards keeping those promises. The members of my cabinet fanned out across the length and breadth of New Jersey, conducting public hearings and holding town meetings last year to get your input. We've included many of your ideas in the budget I presented to the legislature on Monday. This dialogue must continue. That's why we're making history together again tonight by holding New Jersey's first ever statewide televised town meeting. Many of you chose to join us in person at 5 different college campuses. Even more of you are taking the time to stay tuned, take notes, then write, phone, or fax your comments. An address and phone number will flash on your screens throughout the broadcast tonight, so keep a pen and paper handy. Let's get started. I'd like to introduce the members of my cabinet who will serve as moderators at each of the colleges tonight. At William Paterson Colleges in Wayne, Herb Tate, President of the Board of Public Utilities, Labor Commissioner Peter Calderone, and Insurance Commissioner Drew Karpinski. Department of Community Affairs Commissioner Harriet Derman is at Brookdale Community College in Lincroft with DEP Commissioner Bob Shinn and New Jersey National Guard General Paul Glazier. At Raritan Valley Community College in Branchburg, State Attorney General Deborah Poritz will be joined by Education Commissioner Leo Klagholz and Human Services Commissioner William Waldman. At Stockton College in Pomona, Secretary of State Lonna Hooks, Agricultural Secretary Art Brown, State Health Commissioner Len Fishman, and Banking Commissioner Lisa Randall. State Department of Transportation Commissioner Frank Wilson is at Rowan College in Glassboro, along with Correction Commissioner William Fauver and Deputy State Commerce Commissioner Alan Steinberg. With me here at NJN Studio in Trenton is State Treasurer Brian Klymer and Personnel Commissioner Linda Anselmini. Before we begin, I'd like our viewers to know that the questioners were selected at random from each of the live audiences. Our first question comes from our NJN audience. Good evening, what's your name and what's your question?
Good evening, Governor. My name is William Furlong. I'm from Toms River, New Jersey in Ocean County. And my question is, what suggestions do you have for local municipalities and schools to control spending?
Well, that's a good question, and I'm really going to answer that briefly and then turn it over to the Treasurer. As you know, one of the things that we have done in this administration is to offer to the localities, to the counties, the communities, and the school districts review teams from the Department of Treasury, and they have gone out and when requested and so far have completed 4 of these reviews, going into towns and to these localities, the local districts, to find not just what's can be eliminated, what's not being done right or as efficiently as possible, that things that we can show to other towns and school districts and counties so that they can look for those kinds of savings, but also to find out what they're doing right, again, that we can show to others so that they can use it, or what we should be doing at the state level, what we can change to make it easier for the localities to deliver their services without costing them a great deal of money. I don't know, Brian, do you want to add anything to that?
Besides coming up with some specific ideas, such as looking at revenue collections, this has been one area that most municipalities need work. We've tried to look at some of the recurring themes, the things that happen year after year, some of the underlying problems. We've looked at the level of management, the level of supervision. The level of productivity has been an issue, and supervision, the level of and type of systems that they use. All these are issues that have been recurring themes in many of the municipalities that are areas to look at for savings.
Thank you. I think the next question will come from William Paterson? Or from, oh, I see somebody ready at William Paterson College. Yes.
Good evening, Governor.
Good evening.
Williams-Bogar from Montclair, New Jersey.
Welcome.
According to a Star Ledger article that appeared on Monday, the budget includes a plan to add new assessments on insurance companies. Since consumers end up paying for these expenses in the form of higher insurance premiums, can we expect to see the administration supporting limits on lawsuits for pain and suffering in order to cut the cost of insurance?
Well, again, let me take a stab at answering that first, but then I'm going to turn it over to Drew Karpinski, who's the Commissioner of Insurance. But on the last part of your question, let me say, right now we are working very hard with the legislature to get legislation through that goes toward tort reform. We need to do that. We have got to start recognizing that there's some reforms that are desperately needed in the legal system because we all pay for those decisions that are made and some of the lawsuits that we allow to take place. But I'd like to ask Drew Karpinski to answer that. Drew?
Governor, I think perhaps the question was concerning the fact that the additional monies will be paid by the insurance industry this year. The Department of Insurance is a department that serves a specific industry, and they will be paying additional dollars this year as reflected in the proposed budget. Those dollars will translate into a few cents per policy, so it does not have a substantial impact on the policyholders of the state of New Jersey. We're very pleased that more companies are coming to New Jersey to do business. There are more companies coming here, the competition is increasing, therefore there's more availability, and we think there will be better affordability in the year ahead.
Okay, Brookdale. Mr. Gentleman there at Brookdale, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Governor. My name is David Cohen. I'm from Homedale in Monmouth County, and I want to thank you for allowing me to ask this question, which is, how can we be assured that your income tax reduction is not really a tax transfer? That is, for instance, reduced aid to schools or municipalities, which would in turn increase property taxes, or increase charges and fees for services that we get from the state.
Okay, well, that's a very good question because I know a lot of people are very concerned about that. The income tax cut, the reason for cutting taxes is to make this state more competitive and to create more jobs. We found that, and the reason that we were able to go to the 15% in this budget to bring us to 30% was because what we'd done last year has been working. We had the best year of growth and job creation in this state last year that we've had since 1988. 63,000 more New Jerseyans are working now. And they are paying more money in, more taxes, which means more revenues. But on the other side of the ledger, something that should be done no matter what is happening with revenues, is trying to make government leaner and smarter, eliminating programs that we shouldn't be providing or turning them over to someone else to provide, or making sure that when we do provide them, we do it in the most cost-efficient way possible. Now, in this budget, there are some fee increases. In fact, that there is about $19 million of the total budget is fee increased. $10 million of that is from the insurance industry because they are now going to pay for regulating themselves. The fees that we have increased are ones that either haven't been touched since 1973 and therefore aren't covering the cost of the administration of the programs, or are ones where it's a matter of equity and where we close some tax loopholes. But those aren't what's paying for the tax cut. The tax cut is really paying for itself. It's creating jobs and it's putting more money into revenues for everyone. And of course we are, as I indicated in the answer to the first question, doing a lot of everything we can to try to help the localities keep their costs under control. Raritan Valley Community College.
Good evening, Governor.
Good evening.
My name is Richard Noonan. I'm from Burnsville here in Somerset County. I'm the superintendent of schools of the state's most recently formed regionalized school district, the Somerset Hills Regional Schools. My question is this: I was very pleased to hear that the state has established incentive awards for regionalization and shared services, but very disappointed on Wednesday when I opened up my aid notice to find that we were not one of the school districts chosen. So my question is, what was the criteria that was established to choose those schools to receive the incentive awards for efficient operation?
I'm going to turn that right over to Leo Klagholz as the Commissioner of Education.
And I'm right here. There were 4 criteria. One would be that the district be a K-12 regionalized district. Another one would be that it meets state accreditation standards, which yours does. The third one, and I think it's where the problem may have been, the district can't have been one of the 70 chosen for a sanction for high non-instructional spending. And then the fourth one would be that there could be no investigative proceedings ongoing against the district.
I think the important thing to remember here is the program is a new one, and it's really trying to change culture. I mean, you are doing the right thing, and we want to reward that, and I'm sure in the future, whatever the problem was with the original awarding of grants, incentive grants as it were, can probably be overcome. But we really are changing a culture and saying to school districts, we cannot allow you, and the taxpayers can't afford to keep paying for bloated bureaucracies. And if you are 30% above the state average, and that's a good deal of money above the state average, we cannot reward that kind of behavior. And in fact, we are going to penalize it now. But it's a new program, and it's impacted a lot of people, I think, and it surprised them. Stockton College.
Good evening, Governor. My name is Debbie Braun. I'm from Pomona. My father, James Eckert, has been fighting for justice for 6.5 years for the murder of my brother and 2 of his friends. My question is, how would you propose a budget on crime?
How do I propose a budget on crime? We have well, again, I can turn it over to the Attorney General, but before I do, just say that one of the things that you may know that we are doing as a response to really getting ahead of crime, besides funding for a new prison, besides signing laws that make people understand that our laws are tough and they're going to be enforced, we want to start to try to intervene earlier in people's lives, particularly young people's lives, and divert them from a life of crime in the first place. So we don't have to punish people for having done something as horrific as what seems to have happened to your family. It doesn't do us any good to come in, or I mean, it does do good to punish, and you have to punish, but it doesn't help you. It doesn't do you any good because you've already suffered the loss. What we're trying to do is revamp our juvenile justice system and start spending money up front for diversion and early intervention, so you don't have to go through the pain that you've gone through because we've been able to redirect a young person's life. But I'd like to ask the Attorney General, Debbie Poritz, to see if she has something more to add.
I'd like to add that the Governor's Juvenile Justice Advisory Council has looked at these issues, and as the Governor has said, has made recommendations about early intervention and prevention and ways that we can bring the juvenile justice system together and coordinate and try to do something about juvenile crime at an early age, because juveniles become adult criminals, juveniles who are in trouble, and we need to stop that. In addition, this budget funds a state police class that we have. We've had, since this administration came into office, we've had 3 state police classes, and we're really keeping our eye on law enforcement and continuing our efforts in that area, because we have to work on both sides of the system. We have to work on prevention, and we have to work on fighting crime and getting people, putting them in prison when they have committed crimes.
And there is $10 million new money in this budget for juvenile justice initiatives to back up what we say we want to do in the juvenile justice area. Rowan College is next.
Nina Fika from Atlantic City, Atlantic County. My question is in regards to higher ed. I'd like to know if your Commission of Higher Education plans to cap the number of educational opportunity students for FY96, how you plan to fully fund the tuition aid grant for FY96, and why is funding for higher education discretionary rather than mandated?
Well, as you may know, this budget does fully fund the tuition grant program and the Equal Opportunity Fund in order to ensure that students that don't have their own money to be able to pay for college get an opportunity to access college in this state. It's a commitment we made last year to higher education, and we're continuing it. And in fact, we've increased aid to our colleges throughout the state. It's something that we think is very important. And last year, the initiatives we undertook in doing away with the Department of Education, of Higher Education, was an initiative to open up and free up those higher education institutions to be able to grab opportunities, to be able to come together and do the kinds of things that they've been doing, coming together as consortiums and accessing federal monies in a way that they haven't done before. And it's an important commitment. The other thing that we want to do, and having discretionary dollars in there, and it's really every program except for the mandated ones from the federal government fall under discretionary, allows us to channel resources where we see new opportunities opening up. One of the things that we're very interested in seeing, and I don't know whether Commissioner Klagholz would like to speak to this a little bit, is making sure that we have our colleges integrated and working with our primary and secondary schools, as well as with businesses, so we can provide a seamless consortium, really, of education and access to the business world after that. I don't know, Leo, whether you have anything to add to that or not.
A joint committee with the higher education community to look at areas where we can collaborate. One of those is setting standards for student learning, and our goal there is that we want the public school system to prepare students more in a better way to meet the expectations of colleges and businesses. So that's the purpose of the task force, and they'll be submitting a report to the governor sometime in the spring.
I think I'd also, just because of the nature of your question, like to ask the treasurer to put a few more figures behind what my answer indicated.
Yeah, our overall spending in higher education is up almost $50 million. The TAG program is completely funded. Every student who is qualified will receive the full TAG grant. We're about to go out with a $220 million facilities bond program in the next 2 months, and the EOF program is up approximately $1.8 million over last year.
Okay, now we're back here. I have a question here.
Good evening, Governor. My name is Howard Fitzgerald. I'm from Trenton. I'd first like to congratulate you for keeping your campaign promise.
Thank you.
My question has to deal with unemployment in our urban cities, and the unemployment rate is rising. But by the same token, I see a lot of boarded up factories in our cities, and I was wondering if you see as a plausible approach for state government to work with the private sector as well as our local municipalities in trying to open these factories in terms of relaxing maybe some of the environmental codes, because I understand that the private sector would like to come into some of these urban cities, but the codes are so strict and it's cost so much money, so they refuse to come. Do you see?
We see, absolutely. This is an area where we can bring some common sense into government. If you have, and we find these in our inner cities all over the place, we have a site that is deemed contaminated. In order to clean it up, it costs so much money that nobody comes in to clean it up, to build on it, to create jobs. The site doesn't get cleaned up, so it's still there as a contaminated site. Nobody wins, everybody loses. We're trying to bring some sanity to that process and recognize that there are degrees of cleanup that would be required depending on the use, the potential use or the proposed use for that site. In order to ensure that we are protecting the public, we're actually cleaning up the sites, but we can also start to bring some revitalization back to our cities. But I'd like to ask Commissioner Bob Shinn of the Department of Environmental Protection to speak a little bit on this.
The governor described very well was the new ISRA program, which we have 14 grants in action on sites that have community support, have a developer that's willing to spend money on the site, and we turn those programs around very rapidly and have had good success to this point, and we're anxiously awaiting more applicants.
Okay, and Peter Calderone, do you want to say anything about job development as Commissioner of Labor?
Thank you, Governor. Good evening, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Good evening.
Governor, you're absolutely right. We have made very strong efforts to retrain workers at the job site. Our Workforce Development Partnership Act today has 15,000 workers at their job sites being trained in world-class manufacturing, ensuring that we have quality products, a skilled workforce, and greater productivity. And we're especially focused on our urban areas.
Another person, another cabinet officer who might want to say a word is Harriet Derman of Community Affairs.
Governor. I'm happy to participate in working with you in developing an urban agenda, and I know you're going to be announcing it within a few weeks, and we're going to concentrate on maximizing our resources in 4 cities throughout the state. We feel that there's a lot that we can do in coordinating our very precious resources, and we'll be selecting these cities and announcing them in about 2 or 3 weeks, I believe. And then we're going to be able to have one-stop shopping. It won't be a difficult bureaucratic process for the cities and the neighborhoods to come in and get the resources that they need. They'll be able to just come to one council and find out where they can get the help that they need. And we're also going to be working with the neighborhoods, and as the questioner indicated, we're going to ask the private sector to come in and be a partner with the state.
Okay, Paterson College, back to you.
Good evening, Governor. My name is Thomas Tobin. I live in Belleville, New Jersey, in Essex County, and my question to you involves education. What are your goals and initiatives, in particular in the urban areas, with regards to education?
Well, perhaps the most overriding goal that I have for the state of New Jersey is to ensure that it really doesn't make a difference to a young person, to a child, where they go to get an education, and that's not going to happen until we have core curriculum standards. Right now, you do get a different education depending on where you are. Children are taught different things. Algebra 101 doesn't mean the same thing in every school district throughout this state, and it should. There should be basic skills that children learn, and that is going to be a major initiative of this administration in the next years, coming years. And I'd like Leo Klagholz to talk to about this a little bit more. Leo?
Yes, we've been spending over the last 20 years, most of our energy is focusing on equalizing the spending of money in the different types of districts. And the governor's correct. What we really need is educational equality and equality of student achievement. What that means is that each student, wherever they attend school, will be taught the same things and will learn the same things. Last year, the Department of Education formed committees of educators throughout the state to work on this problem of what students should know and be able to do by the time they finish 4th grade, 8th grade, and 12th grade. Beginning next month, we're going to kick off a broader process now of bringing in parents, taxpayers, colleges, representatives of the business community to talk about the very important issue of what do we want to teach our students and what do we want them to learn. Ultimately, we'll be able to define that and send the standards out to all the school districts and then hold each district accountable for enabling students to meet those standards.
Okay, Brookdale, we're back to you.
Good evening, Governor. My name is Mary Zadanowitz from Middletown Township. In November, the voters of this state approved a bond that will be used to finance community-based programs for our mentally ill and our developmentally disabled citizens. How will you explain to those voters this week's announcement of the administration's plan to divert funds from that bond to be used to help finance the closure of the state's largest psychiatric hospital and a center for the developmentally disabled, rather than using those funds for community-based programs for those already on waiting lists, as was intended?
I think you've got it a little mixed up, but I'll ask Bill Waldman, the Commissioner of Human Services, to answer that. But let me just say that we didn't divert money. There is money, new money directed in the budget called bridge funding to help people who are going to be moved, who are ready to be moved, and that's very important, and Bill will explain it, who are ready to be moved into the community, who can start to live on their own. But Bill, do you want to answer that?
Sure, it'd be a pleasure, Governor. The budget also contains a special appropriation of somewhat over $5 million to provide the operational funds to serve people in the community that are currently awaiting services that are developmentally disabled. The bond issue itself and its authorizing legislation, although in principal part and significant part was addressed towards dealing with people waiting for services, it also was addressed to other human service facility needs. I want to stress that before any of the bond funds are committed, the legislation requires a very broad-based planning process that will produce a master plan that needs to be approved by the legislature before any of the proceeds from the sale of bonds are used. It's our belief, because of the magnitude of the funds available through the bond issue, that there will be more than sufficient funds to deal with the serious part of our waiting list, as well as complete other very important initiatives, particularly those related to the recent proposals around closure of facilities. I want to say that those are proposals. We will have a 2-month period of public hearings and input before final decisions are made. We'll have a public announcement shortly, and I would urge you to come to our public hearings to share your concerns and input about how to do that.
The Treasurer also has something he'd like to add to that in answer to your question more fully.
Well, these are additional funds. They're not out of the developmental disability bond issue. The bridge funds and the funds to aid those on the waiting list are new initiative funds that the governor's added into the budget.
Before we take a break that's coming up, I think we have chance to get one more question in from Raritan Valley.
Good evening, Governor. My name is Brooke Titus of Delaware Township in Hunterdon County, and my question is, in order to cut back on welfare costs, would it be possible to implement a system where social services could work together with the Division of Motor Vehicle in locating the absent parent for child support?
That's a very interesting proposal, and those are the kinds of initiatives that we're looking at. We're also trying to develop a relationship with other states to see what we can do about accessing information on missing parents and child support. But Bill, do you have anything to add to this one?
Well, Governor, I think that's an excellent idea that we should pursue. Right now there is legislation pending that deals with license renewals for professional licenses and even driver's license. In the last couple of years, we've implemented immediate wage withholding for child support. We have intercepts for things like tax returns and unemployment benefits to make sure that people who must pay, a judge's order to pay child support, in fact pays that child support. And I think there's many more areas that we can explore to make sure that we maximize those collections, and the one you mentioned is certainly worthy of further study.
But in any of those, I should add, we always have to be careful to ensure that we respect people's privacy and make sure that, because you can do an awful lot of damage if you get wrong information or wrong names, and there's a lot of similarity. But using modern technology that we have available to us is something that we all need to do, and to make sure that we are, in fact, capturing the dollars that are due to people. It's time to take a break now. We have to take a break for New Jersey lottery drawing. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Got to get our priorities straight here. It's money for the state, it's for the budget. Questioning, I think we stopped at Stockton. We're to you again.
Good evening, Governor Whitman. My name is Andrew DeVoe from Passaic County. My question is, as the elderly population continues to increase in the state of New Jersey, how best can the state satisfy their growing needs, in particular Medicare?
Well, as you may know, we are going to be having a conference on aging, and I got an interim report from them not too long ago. You have touched on an area where we have our fastest growing segment of our population in the elderly. It's a population that we're moving to serve, and the Commissioner of Community Affairs has taken a number of initiatives in order to make service access easier for this population and to reach out to them. Harriet, do you want to bring us up to date on what you've been doing and how the budget is approaching this segment of the population?
Right. We believe that in accordance with the Older Americans Act, which is a federal law, that we should provide one-stop shopping for the senior citizens of the state of New Jersey. They shouldn't have to call a few agencies, a few different divisions to find out where they need help and where they can get resources. So that's why, Governor, we asked you to sign a reorganization of 3 different agencies within the Department of Community Affairs so we could have one-stop shopping. Those were the offices of the Public Guardian, the Office of the Ombudsman for the Institutionalized Elderly, and the Division on Aging. And now they're all going to be housed in the Division on Aging. And not only did we save $500,000 in the duplication of administrative services and fiscal management, but now people can call one single 800 number in the state of New Jersey and find out where they can get assistance for senior citizens in the state of New Jersey. Thank you.
Commissioner Waldman, do you have anything you want to add to that question?
I'd like to point out to the questioner that Medicare is a federal program, but in the state Medicaid program, Commissioner Fishman and I are collaborating on a innovation in the program that would create more community alternatives for our elderly who are becoming frail. Right now we have nursing homes that are covered under the Medicaid program, and as well we have a variety of in-home services. There are things like assisted living and alternate care homes that could provide additional alternatives with greater independence and greater security for our elderly population. We hope to conclude our plans very soon and hold them up for some public review and comment in the very near future.
Commissioner Len Fishman, do you want to add to that too?
What Bill said, Governor, which is that in this state today, long-term care is pretty much synonymous with care in a nursing home. Most of the seniors in New Jersey who are receiving services are getting them in a nursing home, and one of the reforms that this administration is committed to is expanding the number of options, as Bill Waldman said. So, for example, assisted living, which offers a far more residential setting for seniors where they can have their own private apartment, some kitchen facilities, a private bath, is one of those alternatives that we're hoping to grow in the state. And we've already, in the last year, licensed 3 of these facilities around the state. Another 15 are in the pipeline. And this is one example of our effort to increase the options that are available to seniors. As Harriet Derman said earlier, we're also eager to have one-stop shopping for senior services at the county level so that people don't have the experience that I had, for example, with my mom when she needed long-term care services, getting bounced from one government office to another. And instead, we want to move to a system where people can go to one place and get all the information they need about services for their loved ones.
Thank you. Now on to Rowan College. You ready at Rowan? We're ready for you.
Hello, hello. My name is Daisy Lake, and I'm from Glassboro in Gloucester County. My question to the governor: I'd like to know what are you going to do for the poor people of the county that you always, all I hear is talk about the middle class. What are you going to do for the poor peoples in the county, you know? How many people, you know, more poor people you're going to put in the soup line, you know what I mean? We're cutting all the tax, all these things out for the poor people. What are you going to do for them, people like me that's on a set income?
Well, we're not cutting all the things out for the poor people. In fact, one of the biggest commitments I've made is to try to ensure that everybody has access to a decent living. And the best way to do that is to start to provide jobs. And one of the first things that we did last year when we mentioned the tax cuts, yes, they're dedicated and directed at the vast bulk of the taxpayers in this state who are the middle income, earning an individual up to $40,000, but we raised the threshold for paying income taxes to $7,500 and took 380,000 people off the tax rolls entirely. Everything that we're doing in this administration is geared in an attempt to create jobs, to give people more opportunity, because I believe very firmly that the best social program in the world is a private sector job. But that does not mean that we're walking away from the other social programs that help the needs of those who cannot afford to help themselves. And I'd like to ask Commissioner Waldman and some of the other commissioners to respond, because this is a problem that in fact brings in a lot of this cabinet.
One of the things that we're most proud of that's contained in the governor's recommended budget is that there is no across-the-board cuts whatsoever in those programs and services that serve our most vulnerable citizens in this state. As a matter of fact, we've, as I indicated earlier, we have an initiative to begin to serve people waiting for services who are developmentally disabled. And our overall budget is slightly down from where it was last year. However, that's a result of economies. That's a result of efficiencies. That's a result of enhanced claiming of federal funds, but it's not as a result of any across-the-board service cuts that impact the poor or other vulnerable populations.
Okay, we're back here to Trenton. And
good evening, Governor. I'm Marge Caldwell from Trenton. With the impending layoffs in state government and the hundreds of people that are out of work from companies leaving the state, such as Hill Refrigeration, does the state have any plans whatsoever for those families that will have no income and they have to meet day-to-day cost of living expenditures?
Well, it's one of the things that I've said over and over again, that as chief executive of this state, it made no difference to me whether someone was out of a job from the public sector or the private sector. They were out of a job, and that was bad for the economy, for the state, for the people. I mean, take aside, if you even put the human aspect of it aside and deal with the dollars and cents, it becomes something that we don't want to see in this state. And so we are actively trying to work, and anytime a company indicates to us that they're thinking of leaving, we bring a team in to try to work with them to see if, first of all, if we can change their minds, what the problem is. And I'd like to ask the Secretary of State who serves as Ombudsman to answer that question. But then I'd also like to ask Commissioner Anselmini from our Personnel Department to just give you some understanding of what we do relative to the state employees who may be impacted by the elimination of various positions that we're proposing to eliminate. But in general, Lonna, do you want to pick up on this question a bit, and then perhaps Commissioner Calderone as well from the Labor Department?
Yes, Governor. With respect to Hill Refrigeration, that was a prime example of where the entire cabinet came together because we didn't want to see Hill leave. They were one of the last biggest employers in Trenton, and everything possible was done. And one of the things that we try to do whenever that kind of situation presents itself is to work from the city level all the way up to the state level. And we met with the mayor, we met with the county executive, but in that particular instance, there were other opportunities for the company that they thought were much more attractive, and really there were executives in the company who wanted to do something different. So unfortunately, we lost that particular battle, but there have been in many others, Governor, as you know, that we have won with Ford and with GM and with Bayway Refinery. Some of the other programs that we are working on now will intervene much quicker, because we are not only waiting for companies to come to us like Hill did, we are looking around the state and talking to people when they even start discussing possible reductions in force, so that we can apprise Commissioner Peter Calderone, who works with the labor training, and he in turn works with Commissioner Anselmini, so that we're not only just trying to advocate the businesses staying, but planning that next step, Governor, as you indicated, planning for retraining of our workforce. And Peter Calderone works very closely with me in doing that, so that we are trying to plan ahead if we aren't successful, as in the Hill situation.
Peter, do you want to respond to this too?
We saw our unemployment rate go from 7.4% in the first quarter of 1974 to around 6% at the end of the year. While we're pleased at that trend, as the governor often says, for the person who is unemployed, the unemployment rate is always 100%. And what we've done is coordinated our state job services program with our federal Job Training Partnership Act program to ensure that those workers who are displaced get the training and the skills to be competitive in the new economy.
Linda, would you like to speak to what happens to state employees?
Certainly. Government is the largest employer in Mercer County, and so when our budget calls for a reduction in force, we are going to do everything in our power to make sure that those employees whose jobs are being eliminated have opportunities to move into other vacancies that exist around the state. We are also working very diligently with the state's unions to see if we can soften that impact by providing some kind of transition aid to these individuals. And we're also exploring the opportunity to provide training to move people from one area that may be contracting into an area where we know that we will be hiring in state government. And we have been very fortunate in that we got a grant from the Department of Labor that we are utilizing to enhance people's skills for job searching and to help them with resumes and to help them to cope with making that transition as we do go forward and perhaps have to lay some people off.
William Paterson College. You're next.
Good evening, Governor. My name is Carol Galatiotto, and I'm from Clifton in Passaic County. My question is in regard to the Municipal Alliance Program. Will you consider supporting the programs and keeping the Dieter funds in the hands of the Governor's Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse?
Well, I'm going to ask a couple of cabinet members to answer that one for me, because they're going to have the specifics. If Harriet wants to speak to that one.
I know the council is something that the governor supports. With regard to the funds, I'm afraid I'm going to have to pass on that one. It's not in the Department of Community Affairs. We do a lot of things, but not that particular function.
Len Fishman, then, as the Commissioner of Health.
Governor, I think maybe we could ask the questioner for a few more specifics about what she has in mind. The Dieter Fund does come out of the Department of Health, but I'm not sure I understand the question.
The question is, will you continue to support the local drug and alcohol prevention programs that are funded by the Dieter funds?
The answer to that is unequivocally yes. In fact, the budget that the governor is submitting to the legislature has more funds for drug treatment and other substance abuse treatment. So we strongly support the local programs that are supported out of that fund, and will continue to do that this coming year.
Okay, we're now to Brookdale.
Good evening, Governor.
Good evening.
My name is Bob Ferry, and I'm from Keyport in Monmouth County. With the potential of saving possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, why aren't school districts allowed to take advantage of managed health care benefit plans when municipalities have proven that they can be great cost savers to taxpayers? And what can you do to expedite currently proposed legislation to make this cost savings realized?
Well, again, I think probably the best and most intelligent answer you're going to get is if I throw that back to the cabinet as well. We'll start with the Commissioner of Education and see if he can enlighten us, and then we'll go to the Treasurer, or we'll go to the Commissioner of Health. Leo, do you want to start?
I'll begin by saying it's my belief that there are just simply legal restrictions on that practice, and that's something we've just begun to look at, whether those legal restrictions should remain in place or could benefit be derived if we were to loosen the controls. So it's something we're looking at.
Len, do you have any more to say on this one?
Well, I think the questioner is raising a very good question and one that we ought to be examining. Certainly managed care in many environments has brought down the cost of health care, and there's no reason it should not be available in every setting, including in the educational setting. So I think the questioner is raising a good question that we in the Cabinet should follow up on.
And we'll do that. We're pretty good at following up on good suggestions, so we want to thank you for that and look into the legal impediment that obviously exists to being able to do that right now at this point in time. Raritan Valley?
Good evening, Governor. I'm Ruth Bervin from Somerset County. I own a small trucking company and therefore am quite aware of fuel taxes. New Jersey has the lowest fuel tax in the entire Northeast corridor. We pay 13 cents a gallon. New York's about 38, Pennsylvania I think is 33, but they're all up in the 30s except New Jersey. I might suggest we increase the fuel tax. It might encourage people to drive in groups. It might encourage people not to take those little extra trips they don't need to and save fuel. And also I'd like to question the Division of Motor Vehicles about, as a side offer or advantage of this, is cutting out the New Jersey Fuel Tax Department, which is hundreds of employees, of bureaucracy, creating unnecessary bookwork for the trucking companies.
Well, first of all, let me say that, as you may know, the fuel tax was discussed as a way of refinancing the Highway Trust Fund. We chose not to do that because we felt that people in New Jersey, while our fuel tax is low, they have enough of a burden with taxes, and we have chosen to refinance the Highway Trust Fund using other methods. But what I'd like to do is ask the Commissioner of Transportation, Frank Wilson, to give you a little more detail on that, and then we'll go to the Attorney General and she can speak to your DMV issue. Frank?
Well, I think that looking at the option of increasing the fuel tax to achieve a program for transportation investment is one way of looking at the choices we had. We believe that we could create a very effective and powerful transportation investment program and have the cost to be reduced to the taxpayers in the state below what, let's say, a nickel gas tax would require. So in an effort to keep the cost for the consumer low and provide a transportation benefit, we believe there are other ways to accomplish that. You raise a very important issue with respect to influencing people's choice about how they move through the state. And one way is certainly pricing, but we believe that before we look to that as a legitimate way to influence travel behavior, we need to have options. And throughout the state, I hear so much of our consumers' and taxpayers' needs for choices. For instance, transit services in the southern part of the state, more bus services in our suburban parts of the state. And so we're going to concentrate with the early investment program of the trust fund to providing those choices, and then perhaps look at other strategies for pricing after we've been successful in providing those choices to our consumers.
Attorney General Poritz?
Yeah. I'd like to respond, Governor, by also asking the particular tax that the questioner is asking about.
New Jersey fuel tax, all states have fuel taxes.
Yes.
Requiring you record every mile you travel, every bit of fuel you buy, where you buy it, how you use it, which is horrendous bureaucracy, unnecessary in New Jersey, since everybody would love to buy fuel here at 13 cents tax per gallon. So everybody rushes to New Jersey, buys fuel, and then goes and travels in New York, which of course is New York's advantage and disadvantage, and they're the ones who started the tax. But we could just wipe out our whole department and save millions in this one bureaucracy.
Well, I think the Division of Motor Vehicles performs a variety of functions. The particular tax you're talking about, if you're talking about trucking taxes that are countrywide, we are involved in trying to look at those taxes and enter into a program that will allow equalization of those taxes around the country, so New Jersey can benefit, because we have a lot of trucks driving through New Jersey that use our roads and come from other states. So we certainly are interested in trying to see an equalization of that program. Motor vehicles is also, as you may know, in this budget, moving to the Department of Transportation, where we hope to be able to streamline operations and have people in transportation who are performing similar functions now work with motor vehicles and the other way around as well. And we really do intend to make major cuts and efforts at streamlining the motor vehicles operations, and we think we can do that very effectively in that move. So I hope we'll address your concern about the bureaucracy to the extent that it exists at motor vehicles.
We have to take another break now, but I would like to ask that last questioner to perhaps jot down her question and send it in, because I think we can probably get you a fuller answer, or else we need to look at something a little more closely and see if we have some flexibility there. But we'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. We're delighted to have you with us tonight as we give you, the people of the state of New Jersey, an opportunity to hear about your budget, because it is your budget. And I should add that there are people in the offices at the State House right now, the Office of Constituent Relations, answering the telephones to take down your questions for those that we can't get to tonight if you're not at one of the 6 locations here, so that we can't answer you directly. But let's go to Stockton now. We have our first question. Rowan? Oh, okay. We're sorry, not Stockton next. It's Rowan.
Good evening, Governor. My name is Jason Levin. I'm a student at Rowan College, and I live in Randolph, New Jersey, which is located in Morris County. And my question to you is, do you feel that the new Israel law is as stringent as its predecessor, ECRA, with respect to environmental violators?
We feel that right now, we have made a very strong commitment to preserving and protecting our environment. What we are seeking to try to do is to achieve a balance so that we do things such as we talked about earlier with inner cities where we have contaminated areas, that we recognize that if it's not going to be housing, that there are ways that we can allow for containment that will stop the environmental hazard that may exist there, but still allow there to be some use of the site. But I'd like to ask Commissioner Bob Shinn of the Department of Environmental Protection to go into a bit more detail. Bob?
I think New Jersey has so many of these sites that the legislators felt it was incumbent to come up with a process that could address many more sites in a much more rapid time frame. What the process involved is developing health risk standards depending on the use of the site, where there's industrial uses, in many cases capping of sufficient environmental constraint for cleaning up that site, getting back into a productive use, and that was the essential intent of the law.
Okay, I hope that's answered the question. We'll hear for a question.
Good evening, Governor. Jack Rafferty, Hamilton, New Jersey.
Yes,
Governor, your predecessors seem to spotlight New Jersey as the place where people should visit. And I recall the statistic as tourism being the #1 or #2 industry in our state. Do you have any, and brings in millions and millions of dollars, do you have any specific plans or marketing ideas for New Jersey?
Oh, absolutely. And as you may know, we have a new motto for the state. It's what a difference a state makes. But perhaps the best person to answer that is Alan Steinberg from our commission, who is handling, they have underneath them the Department of Tourism. And Alan, do you have something to answer to this? Rowan can't hear. Alan Steinberg, he's at Rowan. Can he hear me? No, he can't hear. Okay, well then let me answer your question more fully. We are continuing our commitment to tourism in this budget, because for every dollar you put in, you get anywhere from $70 to $100 back. We're going to have a very aggressive tourism campaign this spring, and we're going to go out and make an effort to reach out beyond even New Jersey's borders, but we're doing something a little different this time. We're not just talking about what we have in the way of physical attributes, which are huge, and of course the shore is our #1 tourist destination, Atlantic City, and all the things that we have to enjoy here as far as the shore, and the out of doors, whether it's hiking or boating or fishing or whatever. But we're also going to highlight our place in history and the cultural assets that we have here in New Jersey, and that is becoming more key and more important to all of us, and we feel that this is a good campaign. New Jersey, What a Difference a State Makes, that the break is going to be a good one. What we're going to do and the outreach that we're going to make, not just here, but around the world, really. We're going to reach out around the world to bring people to the state of New Jersey as a destination for their holidays. Brookdale, we're gone to you now. Is there someone at Brookdale ready with a question?
Good evening, Governor. My name is Scott Norton. I live in Middletown Township in Monmouth County, and my question is about the proposed tax cuts leading to higher tuition costs at community college such as the one I attend. How are students such as myself who are paying for school themselves supposed to afford tuition if the rates keep going up, yet we don't qualify for financial aid?
Well, first of all, the connection you're making between tax cuts and higher tuition is not there. The tax cuts are to stimulate business, to make this state more competitive with other states, to bring more businesses in, to expand businesses that are here, to create more jobs, to create more money in the system. And in fact, that worked, and it's worked very well thus far. And we have started to recapture the boom that New Jersey enjoyed in past years. We, in fact, have put more money into higher education this year than before. Starting last year, we reversed a trend that had been going on for a number of years of cutting back the state's support to higher education. I feel very strongly that we need to continue our commitment there. That's why we're fully funding the salaries and pensions of the teachers at the colleges and universities. That's why we've put more money into all our institutions of higher education. But I think for a better breakdown, I'll turn to the treasurer and let him give you some of the numbers. Brian?
Well, we've increased operating expenses almost across the board in all of the different institutions. As the result of eliminating the Department of Education last year, we've been working through the President's Council. We're respecting that autonomy. They've looked at a program and made recommendations for increases. We went as far as we could in meeting those and did that across the board. Almost $9.5 million in additional operating expenses to virtually all of the colleges, as well as a fully funded TAG program that will absorb increase in tuitions for those qualified students and an increase in the EOF funds, as well as millions of dollars in bond issue funds going to renovate and upgrade our colleges as well.
Now we're going to Stockton. You're back with us, Stockton, so go ahead with your question.
Good evening, Governor Whitman. My name is Nancy Deacon, and I live in Linwood in Atlantic County. And my question is, what guidelines will be used to determine what services at which state facilities will be privatized, and will past success or failure in attempts to privatize be taken into consideration?
Absolutely. We're looking very closely at what other states have done relative to privatization or competition to know and to learn from others who have gone before us. We're also requiring that as we look at any attempt to bring in this competition, that we see what the real costs are of providing the service by the state. Because in the past, we haven't known what the real full costs were. You have to count in things like facilities and benefits. Those are part of what it costs us to deliver services, and then we're going to look at when you put out a request for proposal, you get an idea from the outside as to how they could provide these services. But the other thing that we're making very sure of as we put together these programs and start to look at privatization, are they going to be able to deliver the services in a way that guarantee the quality to the people of the state of New Jersey who deserve it, if these are services that need to be provided for people who require them? And are they going to, we'd like them to look whenever possible, to give a right of first refusal for jobs to people who currently work in those positions within the state, so that they can continue to serve people in a way that they have been used to and they know how to handle the programs. So we're looking very carefully. We do not believe that competition or privatization is an answer for everything, but we certainly think it is a technique that we ought to be looking to see where we can use it effectively and make a difference and help save money for everyone. Rowan College, we're back to Rowan.
Good evening, Governor. My name is Tom Spearing from Washington Township in Gloucester County. I have a two-part transportation question. First, relative to the new Transportation Trust Fund, how will the revenue stream be more focused on local projects? Having said that, two, what is the commitment of your administration to mass transit in South Jersey, more specifically the Burlington-Gloucester line, And what I mean from that is bringing it from the planning stage to the reality stage.
Frank Wilson, that's a question for you. It's all yours.
I'd be happy to take that one. As we crafted the new trust fund proposal, we created the capacity to invest between $800 and $900 million annually in a vast transportation infrastructure we have in the state, and that's to maintain, build, rebuild our highways, transit systems, freight, and aviation components of our system. One of the key elements of the trust fund program in the past and as we project to the future is our ability to invest in county and municipal roads. We looked at the amount of resources dedicated and felt that we should expand that by 50%. So we're moving from $100 million a year to $150 million a year. More importantly, we're looking at ways to have that money move more rapidly into construction. And so we're moving from a reimbursement basis to a grant basis. That has a net effect of cutting cost, cutting government regulations, and having projects appear on the ground a lot sooner than they had before. So it's a dual hit, 50% expansion and a more rapid delivery. The second question is sort of my favorite question, and that is what are we doing for South Jersey in terms of expanding one of the most successful rail experiments conducted in this country, in other words, PATCO. And we believe that this administration will not only commit to design and engineering, but I predict, and this is dangerous to do, but I predict that we're going to see actual construction, and hopefully we'll be able to ride those trains in both Burlington and Gloucester County during our watch.
Well, he's made a promise there, so we're going to have to hold him to it. We're back here to NJN.
Good evening, Governor.
Good evening.
I'm Gloria Tate from Lawrence Township in Mercer County. As an elected official in my municipality, one of the problems that I and my council colleagues wrestle with regularly is the issue of state mandate, state pay. I wonder if there is any relief in this budget that you can offer that we could pass on to the taxpayers in our municipality.
Well, in fact, there are a number that we have, but let me just say, because I'm going to let the treasurer, I'm going to let Harriet Derman respond to you in even more specifics on that, because we do have a number of initiatives where we're combining programs and making it easier for you to access dollars. But I would like to see a state mandate, state pay amendment to the Constitution proposed by the legislature this year to go on the ballot this fall, so we could vote it in and really have some meaningful reform to state mandate, state pay. Brian, do you want to speak to this first?
Yeah, without stealing too much of Harriet's thunder, as part of the municipal budget reviews that both the Department of Community Affairs and Treasury are involved in, we're looking not only areas to save the local municipalities, but we're looking at things that the state can do, the things where the state can improve its functions, where the state can cut red tape, and where the state can make changes in legislation and make changes in regulation to eliminate some of the burdensome paperwork and eliminate some of the burdensome mandates.
Harriet, would you like to follow up on that?
Yes, Governor. Indeed, we have a wonderful news story to tell that we're just about getting out on the street, and that is that municipal governments, all 567 of them throughout the state, are required to submit their budgets to the Department of Community Affairs Division of Local Government Services for pre-approval. We've decided that that is no longer necessary, that we're going to go to a 3-year cycle. And in addition, we think we can get more information from introducing gap reporting. Now, that would ordinarily be a state mandate that's unfunded, but the treasurer and you have provided for $6 million in this year's budget, and we think it's a very good story. So we'll be getting more information, but by the same token, we're going to say to the municipalities, we're asking you to endure less regulation, less bureaucracy from Trenton. And while I have the opportunity, I also would like to be able to say that while we're very mindful of the burden of state mandate, state pay, your budget provides for increased aid to municipalities. Municipalities will be getting more than $1.6 billion in aid this year. And not only is there an increase of $8 million in straight aid, but there's a several $100 million increased aid through transportation, construction fund money, and also relief to the counties from the state takeover of the county courts. So we think there is a lot of good news out there about state aid.
Thank you.
Okay. William Paterson College is next.
Good evening, Governor Whitman. My name is Ann Garino. I'm from West Orange, and that's in Essex County. And as you know, there's very little public transportation available in areas outside of the cities. In light of the insurance costs and the environmental considerations, I'd like to know what kind of plans, if any, are being proposed to to increase public transportation into those areas.
I'll bounce that right to Commissioner Wilson. Frank?
We are currently supporting new bus services, and the program is called Wheels. And these services are intended to penetrate new markets that currently do not enjoy easy access to the more traditional transit services that you'll find in the northern part of the state, the commuter rail services and the long-haul bus services that deliver passengers not only into various cities and towns in our state, but also to Manhattan. This program called Wheels will be expanded over a 3-year period. It is experimental, and I would encourage you and all our residents that have access to these new services to support them. The dilemma we've found in providing services in less densely populated areas is very expensive. We're conducting an intense education and marketing campaign to bring out riders, and we agree quite heartily with you that these experiments are necessary, and we're hoping that the effort will prove to be successful, and we'll be able to continue them as part of our basic program of service delivery.
Brookdale, can we have a question from you?
Good evening, Governor Whitman. My name is Michael Senna. I'm from Fairhaven, and I'm a member of the Board of Education in Fairhaven. And my question is regarding the state school budget cap. And we in Fairhaven were not surprised that we lost aid because we are a transition district, but we were surprised that the budget cap was so low. And with our recently negotiated teacher's contract, we are obligated to pay contractual obligations to the teachers, and it's going to eat up most of our cap. And my question is that we feel that we were sort of penalized by the low cap, and I was wondering if you could respond to that.
Well, I will before I ask Commissioner Klagholz to go into more detail on it, but let me just tell you one thing. As I look at the caps as they exist for both counties, municipalities, and school districts, I'm really of the opinion that we ought to take a good, hard second look at having them at all. Because if you all are elected officials in your local area, you have a responsibility. And if you feel that you can meet that responsibility through expanded spending and are willing to tax for it, and your residents are willing to support you on that, I don't know why the state should come in as big brother. But what we are trying to do clearly, and particularly with school districts, is to ensure that we try to relieve a burden on the property tax, because it has gotten to be such a problem in this state, and it is so huge. That's why there are caps at all now, but I want to look and see if there are other ways of handling this and still trying to help the local spending keep down so that we can reduce the reliance on the property tax. But Leo, do you want to respond to this particular question?
Yes, New Jersey has a special legal reason for school spending caps, and that is we're under a court order to narrow the gap between the poorest communities and the wealthiest, and the two ways of doing that are containing spending at the top while moving up the bottom. The cap this year was set at a level that's 1.25% lower than last year. It's still higher than most economic growth indicators. It's also higher than the increases that occurred last year, that actually occurred. For situations where there are anomalies, there's always an appeal process where a community can present its case to the Commissioner of Education and ultimately to the State Board.
Okay, we need to take another quick break, but we'll be right back with you. Good evening and welcome back to your opportunity to hear your questions answered on your budget. I believe we go back now to Raritan Valley.
Good evening, Governor. My name is Bob Huggins. I'm from Basking Ridge in Somerset County.
I'm with the Home Sharing Program in Somerset County, and we're happy to include you among our supporters.
Right.
Many low-income working people cannot afford even the cheapest apartment in Somerset, and they can't afford to drive long distances to their jobs. What is being done to provide more affordable housing in the county and in the area?
Harriet, Derman, do you want to take that one on?
Yes. Yes, Governor, I'm delighted to take that on. Within a few short weeks, we'll be announcing our housing policy, and I'm very happy to say that it is going to emphasize regulatory reform, a neighborhood approach, urban home ownership, and also rental housing. And we are not going to have any new resources, but you are going to see a dramatic and very creative use of our resources. And we'll be going out on the street with, I'm going to tell it for the first time, hundreds and millions of dollars of resources so that we can create new homes and new opportunities for people to have good, clean, safe, affordable housing. And at the same time, we will be giving a jump start to the economy. As a matter of fact, we have been working with the people from Somerset County. They're very, very helpful. They have many ideas, and we'll be going to do a pilot program with one of the ideas that they actually came to the department with. So they're out there, we're listening to the people, and I'm looking forward to presenting this program with you. It's going to create jobs, and it's going to provide housing, both urban home ownership and opportunities for rental.
Now we've all learned something new we can look forward to. Thank you for the question. We go to Stockton College now.
Good afternoon. My name is Ron McDowell. I'm from Absecon, New Jersey, Atlantic County. I'm currently a student here at the Richard Stockton College. I'm an undergraduate, and myself, as well as a lot of my associates, are planning on getting degrees. We're honing our talents and our skills to become productive citizens in society. Unfortunately, myself, including some of my friends, don't see that happening here in the state. I was wondering what kind of programs, what kind of incentives, policies you might be getting into to see that the talents that you're developing here in the state stay in the state. I know a lot of my friends are planning on moving out and trying to find careers elsewhere.
Well, everything, as I said earlier, everything that we're doing, all the policies that we're undertaking are geared to trying to expand the job opportunities here in the state by getting businesses to invest and reinvest here. But I'd like to ask Alan Steinberg to respond to that as the Assistant Commissioner of Commerce.
New Jersey, in this administration, we are taking a very integrated approach of all the programs of the various departments to, number one, get businesses here to expand, and number two, to get businesses to come to New Jersey. And the real credibility of our administration is the fact that we succeeded in getting our tax cut program through in the first year, and we are now completing the 30% tax cut. These type of incentives were successful in the past year, together with our workforce development program, in bringing the New York Daily News to the state of New Jersey with over 1,200 new jobs. These types of programs have also resulted in a record year for our Economic Development Authority. New projects such as the Barnes & Noble projects and various projects involving small businesses. And the new tax cut programs of the governor involving the small corporations also will result in expanded opportunity. And furthermore, in terms of minorities and women, we have issued a new set of set-aside regulations and also certifications to expand opportunity for women and minorities.
Thank you very much for the question. Rowan College.
Good evening, Governor Whitman. My name is Benjamin Martin. I'm from Western New Jersey. That's in Bergen County. I'm a student here at Rowan College, and I'd first like to thank you for including us in your broadcast on behalf of the students and the student government of Rowan College. You stated in your State of the State address, and again reiterated in part to the American people, that you wanted to lower tax, make government in New Jersey more efficient, and to make a stronger New Jersey. My question to you tonight is, in making a stronger New Jersey, is it proper that your budget outlines the loss of over 3,000 jobs within the state? Not particularly state jobs, but jobs within the state.
Well, in fact, the jobs that you're referring to are state jobs, and let me tell you a little bit about that, because it is important that people understand what's happening here. First of all, what we're doing is talking about eliminating positions and looking at positions. These are positions in programs that have outlived their usefulness, or they're programs that are not being delivered as efficiently as possible, where we know that by combining resources that we can deliver the same service to people in this state without the same number of people, with a lesser number of people. The vast majority, though, of those that are positions that are targeted for elimination or maybe moved would be through competition or privatization. Now, that doesn't mean that's all going to happen, but it does mean that that's what we're looking at. Now, it doesn't mean that those people necessarily are going to be out of jobs. There are a couple of different ways of handling that. One is to encourage, if in fact it does go to a private contractor to provide a particular service, that they have to first offer the job, the right of first refusal, to people who already hold them within state government. We also have the ability to move people around with state government. If their position is being eliminated, we can retrain them if we need to and put them in another job. But we simply cannot in state government continue to fund positions if they're not serving a public need. That's not fair to anybody. The taxpayers lose over that. We have not gone at this in a broad brush fashion. We have been very, very careful to ensure that as we looked at programs and talked about eliminating programs, that we did so from programmatic reasons, studied reasons. We looked at this, we decided we could do the job better with fewer people, or the private sector is the one that really should be providing this service, or perhaps a combination of both. It doesn't mean that all those people are necessarily going to be that you're going to have over 3,000 people lose their jobs, but the jobs themselves may move and the people will have to be moved within state government. But Linda, Anselmini, do you have anything more to add to that?
No, Governor, you basically stated how we're going to approach this. We are trying to do everything within our power to make sure that those employees who want to remain with state government will be given the opportunity to do so. And we have 1 year of experience behind us. We were very lucky last year where we were able to really cut down the number of people who actually lost their jobs as a result of cutting out positions. So we're looking at this in a positive way.
We're back to NJN here.
Governor, my name is Alan Cohen from Lawrence Township, and I have a question about the state pension benefits. Salaries for police officers and public school employees have skyrocketed over the past few years. In my town, which is no exception, increases have been running more than double the consumer price index. Since pension benefits are based on salaries, shouldn't we be taking a hard look at these benefits so that the taxpayers aren't hit with a large bill when these highly paid employees retire?
Linda, I'll turn that right over to you.
Well, you're right about the salaries. I know that there's legislation that's pending that deals with binding arbitration. We have got to look at the way we do health benefits and pension benefits for all public workers. And I think that we started to do that in the budget this year, where we are requiring managers to pay part of their health care premium. And we should, look at what the impact is on the rest of the public workforce as well.
All right, now we're back to William Paterson College. You have a question? I'm not getting the audio on this one. Okay, I'm sorry, William Paterson, okay, we're going to have to go to Brookdale. Brookdale, do you have a question?
Good evening. My name is Kim O'Gara. I'm from Spring Lake Heights, and I had a question. If taxes are cut, will educational institutions be affected by their increase in tuition? And also, will financial aid and other sources of educational help be less available?
Well, I think we've spoken to that issue a couple of times now. The answer to that is we have put more money into higher education in this budget than we've had before, and we've reversed a trend that we have seen over the years of reducing the state support to the institutions of higher education. So the answer in a word is really no, that cutting taxes does not have to result in higher tuition costs. We believe that with the new setup that we have developed for higher education, we are giving the institutions, combined with the financial support we have in this year's budget, we're giving them the flexibility to be able to keep those tuition increases under control in order to make college affordable to everyone. Are we back on with William Paterson yet? Let's go to Raritan Valley.
Hello, Governor. This is Gloria Strickland. I'm from Somerset County. I'm the director of Somerset County Head Start and also Community Action Program. And my question this evening is, what are your views or your thinking about the proposals to block grant federal funds, federal programs through the state I guess I'd like to know, what do you feel the strengths and the weaknesses of that might be for our state?
Well, you've asked a very good question, and it's going to be the subject of a lot of discussion at the National Governors Association this weekend and the beginning of next week. Basically, I do support the concept of block grants because I believe that we at the states can do more to meet the specific needs of our constituents without a whole lot of regulation from Washington that tells us exactly how to spend those dollars. As we have tried to reform welfare, we've had to keep going back to Washington to ask for waivers. That's a time-consuming process and one that doesn't always result in a good decision for an individual state. So that is a problem, and I do support block grants. But you're right in raising the question about, is it safe to just talk about block granting? When you're talking about entitlement programs, we need to be careful about that. How that block grant concept is set up and whether the federal government maintains a responsibility to providing funds, whether they level fund for the next 5 years, but they have a provision to handle in case of a downturn in the economy. There are certain basic programs that have to be there. Food has to be there. Medical care has to be there for people. There can be no real, there's a limited amount of discretion in that. What I'm going to be looking for when I go to Washington and part of this discussion is that there is an understanding that there are certain programs, certain entitlements that need to be there, whether they're state entitlements or individual entitlements, however they want to handle it. They still need to be recognized as such. And also that we need to be very careful that we send a message, a strong message, that government does have a role to play and that we in the states, while we want the federal dollars and we like as much flexibility as possible, are going to have to live within certain constraints on how to spend that money because it is still taxpayers' money. We're going next to Paterson College. Now you're back on.
Okay. Good evening, Governor Whitman. I'm Phyllis Bivlitz, Clifton, Passaic County. As a homeowner, I'm concerned with my property tax. Will you actually help set guidelines for our municipal budget, municipal governing body, and will that be done through your budget team?
Well, we have a number of guidelines, and I'll let Harriet speak to that, but the state is not going to come in and run the municipalities. It shouldn't. In fact, we are trying to give your elected officials more flexibility in how they deliver the services to you because you elect them to do that. And it gets to be very confusing and difficult when the state is constantly coming in to oversee. But obviously we have a responsibility, and one of them is being met by the teams that are going out from the Department of Treasury that go to municipalities that request it, to help them take a look at themselves, really, to see what kind of practices they are using, how effective they are, where they can do a better job, where the state can come in and help them more. And that's important, but we really have to work as partners with municipalities, not come in and try to govern municipalities. I don't believe that would work, but Harriet, you may have a different view of that.
No, I don't, Governor. I agree with you exactly. Indeed, I like what you said in your budget address the other day, that the state does not collect a penny of property tax. The state does not spend a penny of property tax. It is the prerogative, it is the domain of the school districts, of municipalities and counties of how property taxes are spent. But we are there to help in the Division of Local Government Services and the Department of Community Affairs. As I said, we will be withdrawing from having to review every single budget of the 567 municipalities, and we will be stressing audit review and helping to provide resources and technical skills with municipalities so that they can keep their expenses lower. And the Treasurer's Budget Review Team, which is staffed by people from the Department of Community Affairs, has gone out already. We've seen the results from 4 different municipalities, and we have disclosed savings of $8 million in just these 4 municipalities alone. We have requests from 120 municipalities to have the teams come in and help them to see where they can save money. We've also been going around the state with our shared services forums to indicate to municipalities that they can save money by sharing. I know it sounds like a common sense thing, but municipalities can share with their neighboring municipalities, with their counties, and with their school districts, and they can really effectuate some savings. So we think that there is a lot that can be done to help municipalities. We understand the enormous burdens under which they're operating, but we think we have been assisting them.
Well, I'm very sorry to say that that's about all the time we have for tonight. I wish we could do more. I sincerely hope that everyone who didn't get a chance to participate will write, phone, or fax us at the numbers or addresses that you've been seeing on your screen. You've heard me say many times and again, time and again, that New Jersey is many faces in one family. This is your state budget, so your suggestions and comments are crucial to this process. Together we can bring the cost of government down, lower taxes, and provide greater opportunities for all of our citizens. Before we call it a night, though, I'd like to personally thank the administrators, faculty, and students who produced tonight's town meetings at Paterson College, Brookdale Community College, Raritan Valley Community College, Stockton College, and Rowan College. They all worked very hard, and many volunteered to make this unique program possible. I'd also like to thank the entire crew here at New Jersey Network for their professionalism and courtesy, and special thanks to my cabinet and staff for their dedication and extra effort. Good night, and God bless everyone.
Thank you.